Right now, Jess Thom joins me in Studio Q.
Hello,
Welcome.
Biscuit, thank you. Biscuit.
So first of all, for people who
Biscuit.
aren't familiar or who have misconceptions about Tourette syndrome, can you briefly explain what it is?
Biscuit, yes, of course. Biscuit, Tourette's is a neurological condition, Biscuit, characterised by involuntary, Biscuit, movements and noises called tics, Biscuit, and you'll be able to, Biscuit, hear some of my tics, Biscuit, Biscuit, cats, hedgehog, Biscuit, some of them, Biscuit, Biscuit, but what your listeners won't be able to hear, Biscuit, is that I also have motor tics, so involuntary movements, and mine include, Biscuit, thumping my chest hundreds of times a day and tics in my legs that make my walking very wobbly, Biscuit, Biscuit, but it also gives me access to a spontaneous creativity, Biscuit, that I wouldn't otherwise have, Biscuit.
I want to get into all of that. When did you first start noticing symptoms?
Biscuit, well, Biscuit, I've had tics since I was about 6, Biscuit, and as a child, Biscuit, they were much less noticeable, Biscuit. So the earliest thing I can remember, Biscuit, was a simple squeaking noise. Beans, cats. But even though my tics were very mild, I still worried about them a lot, Biscuit, and I didn't feel able to talk about them, Biscuit. And the reasons that I made up in my mind were much worse than the reality that I had Tourette's, Biscuit. And it wasn't until adulthood, Biscuit, when my tics began to intensify, Biscuit, that I got a formal diagnosis. Biscuit, hedgehog.
And it can change, it can be different for different people. It can intensify over time or decrease over time, the symptoms?
Biscuit. Yeah, one of the features of Tourette's is that tics wax and wane, which means they get better and worse over the course of someone's life, or more and less intense. Biscuit, cats, Biscuit, and Biscuit. This, in some ways, means that tics change. That unpredictability, Biscuit, can make it quite a challenging condition to live with, Biscuit. And as well as being an unpredictable condition, Biscuit, people's responses can be unpredictable too, which adds another layer of, interesting experience, interest to the experience. Biscuit.
And you said when you were diagnosed, it was kind of a relief. It was better than what you thought.
Biscuit.
What did you mean by that?
Biscuit. Well, as a child, Biscuit, I knew that I behaved in an unusual way. Biscuit. I knew that I made noises and I didn't understand why. Biscuit. And so in my mind, I thought that maybe I was bad, naughty, that there was something seriously wrong with me. Biscuit. And those ideas sort of festered and undermined my confidence in myself. Biscuit, having a diagnosis, Biscuit, and a way of explaining to other people, Biscuit, my experiences, and at last being able to understand something that had always been a big part of me was really powerful and, life-changing. Biscuit, cats.
So we don't see many theatre artists with Tourette's syndrome.
Cats.
When did your interest in performing start?
Biscuit, hedgehog, Biscuit. Well, in 2010, I co-founded an organisation called Tourettes Here, Biscuit, which celebrates the humour and creativity of the condition and encourages people with and without Tourette's to think differently about what is one of the most frequently misunderstood syndromes on the planet. Biscuit, hedgehog, and Biscuit. Out of that naturally grew performance, Biscuit, so out of delivering talks and training, Biscuit, and out of the difficult experience, Biscuit, that you mentioned at the start at the theatre, Biscuit, when I was sobbing in that sound booth, having been asked to move during a show about segregation, Biscuit, I made a promise to myself that I would never go to the theatre again, Biscuit, and I didn't feel like it was something that was for me. I didn't want to put myself in situations where I was being discriminated against or excluded and being damaged by that. So I thought the solution is to stay away, Biscuit. But I was supported by amazing friends, Biscuit, and through conversations to realise that there were other ways of responding to that situation, Biscuit. So instead of keeping that promise, Biscuit, I decided, Biscuit, to find the only seat in the house, Biscuit, I wouldn't be asked to leave. And that was the start of Backstage in Biscuit Land. Biscuit,
and that
cats.
only seat being on the stage.
On the stage.
Itself. What was it like performing for the first time? You're a fan of theatre for so long. What was it like to perform for the first time?
Well, Biscuit, it was, there were some bits of it that were really scary. It's quite, but others, some of it felt really natural. Biscuit, I found that developing the confidence and language to explain my tics to other people has been a really important tool for living and having a good quality of life, Biscuit. And I do that every day, whether that's, at work or on the bus, Biscuit. Biscuit, so doing it on a stage, Biscuit, or in interviews like this, actually felt like a natural extension of that, Biscuit, and in some ways just meant we could reach more people at once. So some of it felt really exciting. Hedgehog Biscuit, and I'm also very well supported on stage by my co-performer, Jess Jones Biscuit. She's also called Jess. Biscuit, handily, my tics have nicknamed her Chopin for no good reason at all. Biscuit, so we call her Chopin in the show to avoid confusion. Biscuit, and she's there to help me stay on track and mean that we don't get totally distracted. Biscuit, by lampposts. Lampposts live off the stage. I love lampposts. I'm quite prone to talking about lampposts, or my tics will take me in very strange directions. So Jess is there to help.
So she's your
make sure.
co-star to help you.
Biscuit, and because it's a show that embraces spontaneity and improvisation and that creativity. Biscuit, but also we have messages that we want to communicate to the audience, and she's there to help make sure we do.
Tell me what the
Cats.
show is all about and what it looks like, because it changes night to night.
Cats, Biscuit, Biscuit. The core of the show is about my life with Tourette's, Biscuit, and we introduce the world to Biscuit Land, Biscuit, which is the surreal world that my tics create around me. Biscuit, hedgehog, cats, Biscuit. So beans. I love Pilates. I don't actually love Pilates. Biscuit, I barely know what it is. Cats, hedgehog, Biscuit.
Me neither.
Biscuit. So, it introduces the audience to that world, to my journey with Tourette's, Biscuit, but also talks about theatre itself. And Biscuit talks about the difficult experience I had at the theatre. Biscuit, some more positive ones. The first performance that I met Jess Chopin at, which was a relaxed performance that she was performing in. Biscuit, and it talks about our deeply held belief, Biscuit, that by making theatre and by making art inclusive, you make it better. You make it better, stronger and more dynamic theatre and art, Biscuit, and that Biscuit, work that Biscuit embraces and welcomes everybody into it, Biscuit, leads to really positive and interesting outcomes, Biscuit.
And from what I understand, this is a dynamic show itself.
Yeah,
as you said, there's humor in it, which I want to talk about in a
Cats.
moment. But you also visit
Salad
some of
dressing.
the harder moments that you've experienced. What's that like? Processing that and exploring that on stage in front of an audience.
Biscuit. Well, I think it feels really important to me to talk about those experiences, and they're still quite. I can tap into some of those feelings really easily, and they're really still quite close to the surface sometimes, because those feelings of exclusions are still something, Biscuit, that happens to me as a disabled person when, Biscuit, things aren't set up to consider difference, Biscuit. And so talking about them feels really important, because it's by acknowledging them, Biscuit, that we can change them, Biscuit, and I can be part of finding those solutions, and I can invite other people to be part of finding those solutions, Biscuit. I really, sometimes it's upsetting, Biscuit, and sometimes it just feels really liberating to be able to sit on a stage and tell people about some of those things and encourage them to think differently and see things from different perspectives. Biscuit, cats.
As I mentioned, the show is funny as well.
Funny.
You said that one of your goals is to take ownership of the laughter associated with Tourette's syndrome.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, taking ownership of the laughter?
Hedgehog, Biscuit. Well, there's lots of spontaneous laughter that comes from Tourette's. Biscuit, when I make a phone call, when I answer the phone, I often explain to the people on the other end, Biscuit, that I have tics and I have Tourette's. Biscuit, in 99% of the phone conversations I have, I can hear the other person laugh at the other end of the phone when they hear the word Tourette's. Biscuit, and it's because there's such deeply held myths about the condition, and people, Biscuit, strongly associate it with swearing, when in fact only 10%. Biscuit, fuck a sheep. Only 10% of people with Tourette's have obscene tics. Biscuit, I am one of them. Fuck it. Biscuit, hedgehog. But yes, because of those myths, because people are laughing about the condition, because of assumptions and stereotypes, I wanted to really explore the many other funny and fascinating things about Tourette's. And there are loads of elements and factors about living with a condition like Tourette's that are funny. Some of the tics I say are really surreal and funny in a way that the conscious part of me, Biscuit, can only dream of. Biscuit, and also some of the experiences that I have are very surreal and strange and humorous. Biscuit, but there is a big difference between laughing at something or laughing at someone, Biscuit, and sharing the humour of a situation, Biscuit, and laughing with someone, Biscuit. And I think that it's often characterised, Biscuit, that line is often characterised as a blurred line. But I've never been in any doubt, Biscuit, about whether someone's laughing at me or sharing the humour of a situation with me, Biscuit. But I think fear of crossing that line, of causing offence or mocking or trivialising disability puts people off using one of the most powerful tools, Biscuit, we have for connecting with other people. Laughter is an incredible way of engaging and sharing an experience, and I really don't want that to be neglected as something that we do, and disability should be something that we can explore with humour, as long as the laugh is located in the right place. Biscuit.
What are some of the funniest experiences you've had, or vocal tics that stand out for you?
Biscuit. Well, some of my one of my favourite vocal tics, Biscuit, is replace every chimney in London with a penguin. Biscuit. It's the hippies of outrageous fortune that weigh heavy on the minds of dogs. Biscuit. Cats. Alan Hansen. Biscuit. Biscuit. And so in terms of experiences, Biscuit, we're touring, Biscuit, at the moment in North America and going across the US, Biscuit, and obviously here in Canada, Biscuit, as part of the World Stage season at Harbourfront Centre. Biscuit. And that means lots of air travel, Biscuit. And there's an element of Tourette's, Biscuit, that is saying the worst thing in any given situation, Biscuit. So I will be the person at the airport, Biscuit, explaining to security that there's not really a bomb in my bag or a cocker spaniel, hedgehog, Aladdin, Biscuit, or Aladdin's lamp. Beans.
How do you personally prefer that people respond to your tics?
Biscuit, I would like people to respond naturally to my tics. Biscuit, so that means that if something is funny, then they laugh at it. Biscuit, if something is repetitive, that they ignore it. Biscuit, if they have a question, that they ask it. Biscuit, I would much rather, people ask me questions than made assumptions. Biscuit, hedgehog, Biscuit, cats.
How has Tourette's affected your creativity?
Biscuit, hedgehog, Biscuit. Well, I think, Biscuit, it gives me access to a creativity, Biscuit, a spontaneous creativity that I wouldn't otherwise have, Biscuit. And interestingly, my tics often draw my attention, Biscuit, to elements in the world around me, Biscuit, that I wouldn't otherwise notice. And I feel very lucky to have that view and to have the perspective that I have. Biscuit, cats.
You've described that unpredictable speech as a joy.
Biscuit, yes. Yeah. Biscuit, I think, Biscuit, the moment where my thinking around Tourette's transformed, Biscuit, was a conversation that I had with my Tourette's Hero co-founder, Matthew Pountney, Biscuit, and he described Tourette's as a crazy language generating machine, Biscuit, and told me that not doing something creative with it would be wasteful. Biscuit, and I was able to hear that sentence in a different way, Biscuit, than I'd heard anything before, Biscuit, and it made me able to understand that there might be some value in my tics, and that rather than ignoring them, Biscuit, limiting them, Biscuit, limiting my life to avoid having to understand or explain them, Biscuit, there was another way, and that was celebrating, acknowledging, and using them as creative springboards. Biscuit, cats.
Also, in terms of creativity,
Biscuit,
you're not able to stay on a script, so that puts you in a kind of constant improvising situation.
Me and Chopin. She's had a crash course in improv.
What's that like for her?
Biscuit, I think she really enjoys it. I think there's definitely moments where she's really been tested or pushed. Biscuit, Tourette's can be very cheeky and playful, and her mum's tits get mentioned a lot. But she's incredibly responsive and brilliant at coming up with imaginative responses. Biscuit.
You said that you met Jess Chopin at Relaxed Performance.
Yes.
Biscuit. Can you describe what that is, a relaxed performance?
So relaxed performance is a way of describing theatre, Biscuit, that offers a warm welcome to people who might not be able to follow the conventions of traditional Biscuit theatre etiquette. So Biscuit, that might include people with Tourette's or people who might make noises. It might include people with autism or a learning disability. It might include people with young children, Biscuit, or just really big laughs, Biscuit, hedgehog, Biscuit. And although relaxed performance is a useful for people who have that as an access requirement, Biscuit, hedgehog, Biscuit, it's also really beneficial to the whole audience, Biscuit, because everybody is given that permission to relax, Biscuit, and respond naturally. It creates a more interesting and dynamic theatre environment, Biscuit, and means that, everybody can laugh harder or cheer or move around, Biscuit. And I think that's really important. There's so much amazing theatre, Biscuit, available. Biscuit, I wouldn't want anyone to miss out, Biscuit, because of preconceptions about who it's for or how it should be enjoyed. Biscuit.
And you said this is part of what you're trying to do with this show, make theatre more accessible.
Yeah.
What kinds of other things can theatre do? Can we do?
Biscuit. So, Biscuit, Biscuit, I think being responsive and understanding that people might need to do things in different ways. Biscuit, disability doesn't look the same for everybody. There are lots of disabilities that aren't visible, but being ready to make adjustments and understand that, Biscuit, not everybody will be able, Biscuit, to do things in the same way is a really good place to start. Biscuit, we've built audio description into our show. So we describe what's happening on stage within the text in really playful ways, which means that if you're not able to see what's happening on stage, if you're blind or have a visual impairment, Biscuit, that you're still able to enjoy the experience and understand what's happening and not miss out on elements of what's happening on stage. Biscuit, it's also always great when we work, Biscuit, with a sign language interpreter, Biscuit, because my tics, Biscuit, very, very much incorporate that within the show, Biscuit. So I think for me, thinking about access and access considerations at the start of a show, the start of the creative process, can make really interesting outcomes as a result. Biscuit.
Have you seen education grow in theatres around accessibility in the last few years? Or
Biscuit. Yes. Yeah. Biscuit. Definitely. I think there's a real strong interest, Biscuit, from lots of different venues. Biscuit. Certainly in the UK, Biscuit, and definitely from what I've experienced here in Canada, Biscuit, and in the States, Biscuit. Theatres want to welcome new audiences into their spaces. Biscuit. If theatre is going to survive, it has to be, accessible and build wide audiences. Biscuit. And Biscuit, Biscuit, disability isn't a niche issue. Biscuit, anyone who's got a mind or body can become disabled at any point in their life. Biscuit, having meaningfully thought about what that might mean, Biscuit, and having spaces that are ready to be welcoming and responsive to different and changing needs means that we will have more inclusive communities and society. And that benefits everybody. Biscuit, cats.
Well, it's great to have you here in Toronto, Jess.
Thank you very much. Ta-da!